Back to my channel. I'm carrying on reviewing Girl Unmasked from where I left off the other day. Thank you for all your comments as well. So I'm just carrying on from where I left off. So I got up to a bit, didn't I, where I was talking about how she didn't have to leave lessons for special ed classes because she didn't have any learning difficulties or anything, and obviously that's different to my own experience because I did. But she talks about, so yeah, she was basically an academic high achiever and she was praised for her academic ability, so it sounds like she did pretty well on that front, so that's different to my experience. But she talks about perfectionism over homework. It took her all evening to do her homework because of perfectionism. I really struggled with homework, but I needed my parents to help me with it because unless it was really, really simple, I really struggled to understand what I was supposed to do. So my parents basically helped me with homework all the way through secondary school. I struggled and I often needed a lot of support, unless it was a subject I was really, really interested in. There were some exceptions, like if I was really interested in it, then I could do it on my own, but a lot of the time I just found it really difficult and confusing. So that's different to her, but obviously she says that she was very perfectionistic and it took her a long time to do it, but it sounds like she did it on her own. She didn't mention her parents helping her or anything, so that's different to my experience. She said that she was never perceived to be naughty or disruptive. Yeah, it's different to me, mainly at primary school and also to some extent at secondary school, at least at the beginning. I was disruptive in a sort of minor way, but it did get me into trouble. So I was disruptive to a small extent, not to the extent of getting excluded or anything major like that. But yes, I was disruptive. So that's different to her. She talks about how her cousin also has autism, so maybe a slight genetic linkage there, but he was diagnosed way before her. And then she talks about how this seems to be where things started to go downhill for her after the age of around 13. Age 13 seems to be a sort of critical year for her. She says that she went on a school trip to Belgium and she had a very severe panic attack, and this ends her up. She has a very severe panic attack in Belgium on a school trip, and she ends up in hospital because of that. And she then has them again and again. Very, very, very severe panic attacks. I have had a few panic attacks myself, but nothing to the extent of that. That sounds pretty extreme. Never to the extent of ending up in hospital. And when I do have panic attacks are usually fairly short-lived. Not to the extent of like fainting or collapsing or anything major like that. But obviously they are horrible. But yes, her ones sound very, very extreme. I mean, ending up in hospital. And then there seems to be like a sort of recurring thing for her. When that first panic attack hit, it marked the beginning of a major battle, she says, and she would spend the next few years of life, as she calls it, a prisoner to panic. She changed. It seems to be quite a rapid escalation of mental health problems, nothing gradual. In my case, all of my mental health developed quite gradually, not for the most part, not like a massive break like that. It almost sounds like she has some sort of breakdown or something here. Overnight, she says, she changed from a golden child, in her words, golden child who teachers loved, to a child that teachers had to battle with just to get her to sit in class and who would end up disrupting the lesson. Once panic took hold, she would end up disrupting the lesson because of her panic. She said this happened shortly after her grandfather died, so maybe it sounds that the death of her grandfather possibly precipitated this mental health crisis. And anything could trigger panic for her. Noise, crowds, changes to routine, thoughts of death or danger were common triggers for her. So panic seems to be a major problem for her that developed in her teenage years. But prior to the age of 13, it doesn't seem like she had. It seemed that she was pretty okay, at least when she was at least to all on a sort of superficial level. I'm not so sure if she was completely okay, but it sounds like she didn't have too many problems before the age of 13, which is different to me because I did have a lot of problems very early on, in terms of, very early signs and so on. She doesn't really mention too much in the way of early signs in her book. It's mainly focusing more on her teenage years because that seems to be when things went downhill for her. She did face some subtle verbal bullying at primary school though, so not all good times. So she did experience some verbal bullying at primary school. But on a friendship front, at least by the time she's at secondary school, she seems to be pretty okay. She has 4 best friends. 4 best friends. Hell, I would have been lucky just to get 1 friend. I really struggled with friendships. But yeah, she had 4 best friends. And they lasted her all the way through secondary school. She says she's still in contact with them now. So at least on a friendship front, she seems to be doing pretty well socially. And that's very, very different to my experience, because I really, really struggled with friendship. I mean, social skills were complete anathema to me. Non-verbal social rules, couldn't hack them. Didn't understand any of the non-verbal social rules about when to follow someone, when to stay seated, what to talk about, the whole reciprocity thing. And I mean, I still really struggle with that. I've just never cracked the code. So it kind of baffles me in some ways how to read about, another autistic person who's able to have 4 friendships. That's amazing. I just can't understand how they can do it. But she must have some social skills I lack, because hell, I couldn't even manage 1 friend. This is before I had major OCD, by the way. So this was 100% my autism. I just could not hack it. So yeah, different experience there. So it seems like the major differences between me and her is that I had academic difficulties when I was at school. I did have special educational needs. And I really struggled socially in terms of friendships. And I was a little bit disruptive at times. Those seem to be the major differences between me and her that I've so far in this book. Oh yeah, she also says that so far, by the time she's in year 10, secondary school has been an easy ride in terms of friendships. Easy ride in terms of friendships? Bloody hell. Secondary school, for me, I don't understand how they can do it. When I was at secondary school, as I said, I wish it was an easy ride. Hell, I don't know what went wrong for me, but seriously, I tried so hard to make friends, and I just couldn't do it. I didn't understand the rules. I was told, the first girl I tried to make friends with told me I was too clingy, and that's literally because I followed her everywhere. I didn't know when not to follow her, and if anyone else talked to her, I got really, really upset because I thought she was my friend, and I just found it really, really confusing and baffling, like how to navigate all of that, and the whole dynamics around friendship, and like just how to keep it going, and how to maintain a conversation, what to talk about. There's these really long, awkward silences because I just didn't know. I didn't know any of those unwritten rules, like where to look, what to do. All of it was just a complete and utter mystery to me. So to be able to have 4 friends, I just don't understand how anyone autistic can do that. But like I said, that just shows how autism is such a massive thing, and like we all have different experiences, but it just completely baffles me how that's possible. Because my experience at secondary school was of being a complete loner. Like I said, I did try to make friends, they didn't work. Ultimately, I just gave up, because there comes a point where you've had so many experiences and not being able to maintain them beyond like a couple of weeks, that you just think, okay, there's no point in even trying anymore. And that wasn't because I wasn't socially motivated, and that wasn't because I was shy. I'm not shy at all. And I wasn't even like particularly introverted about age. I've become a lot more introverted with age, and I think a lot of that is a reaction to rejection as well. And I think also we just do get more introverted the older we get. But certainly when I was younger, I wasn't aloof or anything. I really wanted to interact. I just had absolutely no idea how to do it. So it wasn't to do with my personality. It wasn't that I was like wanting to just shy away in a corner or anything. I wanted to interact, and that's 100% my autism, because that was before my mental health problems got really bad. So yeah, I just don't understand how an autistic person can get through with 4 friends. I mean, let alone 1. I mean, yeah, some autistic people are just lucky and maybe have the odd friend, and a lot of that can just come down to luck, or maybe their parents have orchestrated it for them. But to be able to have 4 friends and to be able to do that all on your own, I just don't understand how that's possible. But different types of autism, clearly. She says they've been good friends since year 7. Lucky her. I'm a little bit envious. I'm not. Her life sounds really hard, by the way. I don't envy her life at all. It sounds horrible what she's gone through. But I do envy people who are able to have like friends like that. I just don't know how it's possible. But anyway, she talks about having high grades, and she's in set 1 for most of her subjects, so in the top set. Again, it's different to me. I was in the bottom set for most subjects. Not because of a lack of intelligence, because I had very severe learning difficulties, executive functioning problems. I needed a lot of support, and it took me a very long time to kind of navigate the whole academic side. I did improve eventually. I mean, hell, like I said in my other video, I did manage to get to university. Still don't know how I did that. No one expected me to even pass GCSEs, by the way, and I wouldn't have done if it wasn't for my parents hothousing me and giving me so much supervision. I couldn't do it on my own. I needed so much support and structure and organisation from my parents to help me pass my GCSEs. But I mean, I have a good long-term memory, and I thought that GCSEs were really important, so I really wanted to try and get them, because at that stage I was thinking, right, I need these GCSEs, these are critical because everyone tells you how important they are, and I was thinking, I really need these for my future life chances, and I thought I was going to miraculously get better and be like a quote-unquote normal person, be able to work and all of those things, so I thought they're like really important. Looking back on it now, for benefit of hindsight, I wish I hadn't bothered, because I can't work, I developed severe mental health problems. If I'd actually spent more time focusing on my mental health problems and what really matters, maybe I'll be in a better place now. But at the time they seemed really important, and but I wish I just hadn't bothered. But I only got them because my parents spent so much time helping me try and get them. Otherwise I wouldn't have got them. I just relied on my long-term memory, memorising my dad's notes. That's ultimately how I got them, basically. So, yeah, helps having a parent as a teacher, as he was a teacher. It sort of helps a bit. There's this horrible background noise. When I'm speaking to you right now, I'm really struggling to concentrate. So there's this really background noise. Thank goodness I took notes. I might not show on this camera, but it's fucking annoying me. That's sensory issues for you. I hate it. I don't even know where it's coming from. I think they're cutting trees or something, but it's just really pissing me off. But anyway, you might not see it, and you probably don't, because I hide a lot of what I'm going through, but it's really, inside it's really distracting. Okay, yeah, where was I? So I was talking about how she talks about high grades, which is completely different to me, and how she was in the top set for a lot of her subjects, and again, that's completely different to my experience. But now, because of her panic attacks, she struggles to make it into lessons, and when she does go to class, she often leaves to have a panic attack. But her friends sit by her to comfort her, so at least she has some comfort from her friends. She also begins to self-harm. I've never self-harmed, never ever self-harmed. I've never been depressed either, so I'm lucky in that respect. I've just never done that. So never self-harmed or anything, but she did. She begins to self-harm, and she also talks about OCD. So she does have OCD, and that seems to develop for her from around the age of 10. So a bit before she developed panic attacks, she got OCD, although not too bad at that stage. So she develops OCD from around the age of 10, and she got OCD over the possibility of having head lice after she had an episode of NITS. So she had an episode of NITS at the age of 10, and then after that point she would check over and over to make sure that she didn't have NITS, and got obsessed around whether someone else sitting next to her in class might have NITS. So that seems to be her earliest OCD, was around NITS. My OCD, I don't know exactly when I first got OCD, but there were very distinct episodes in my childhood of OCD. They often were quite intense episodes that would come and then just go. Not like continuous, like what I have it now. It wasn't like a 24/7 thing as a child. It would be like very intense episodes that might just last like, say, half a day or something, and then I'd get over it, and then it would come back again, and then it would like come really intense, and then it would go. Whereas now it's like a 24/7 thing, but it hadn't yet become a kind of consistent 24/7 thing in my life. And I can't remember exactly when that happened, but I think my earliest like really clear, distinct OCD memory was around the age of like 7.5 or 8, and that was over like whether or not I might have because we were with my cousin, and she happened to be unwell, my little cousin, and I was like really worrying over whether I'd accidentally like taken some drink from her mug or something, because we were at a pub, and it just happened she wasn't very well, and I was about like 7 or something. I think it must have been I would have been about 7. And then I was like really worrying in case I like accidentally had drunk some water, drunk some juice or whatever it was from her mug, and I was like obsessing about it for ages. So that obviously stays in my head, I guess, because it did make me very obsessive, and it was all like internal rumination. And then there was another one where for women who owned a pub, we put basically me and my cousins. This was on another occasion, by the way, not the same occasion. And this would have been when I was a bit older. We put our hands in the pond, and she told us to wash our hands or we would get a tummy upset or something like that. And I just remember spending ages washing my hands and like really, really worrying about it. But I think I took all these things like really literally and like took it too far. But they tended to be kind of short-lived, very intense moments of obsessions. as opposed to like 24/7 now, and it tended to be around like what someone told me around like health and safety or something, and I take it really extreme. Like when we were told to wash our hands before lunch at school, I would wash my hands constantly. So and that got particularly bad around the age of 9 or 10, and my hands got really chapped to the point of bleeding. And yeah, it didn't cause me like major distress or anything, and I didn't like really overthink it, but it was like just extreme repetitive hand washing, which I think was like the early sign. But then it did seem to get better after the age of around 11. Between 11 to 13, it was almost like my OCD just went, and I had 2 years free of it weirdly, and then it suddenly came back again around the age of 13, and when it came back, it was a lot worse than what it had previously been, and also it became more persistent as well, and that's kind of where I am today. So, but anyway, I digress. So yeah, but her OCD seems to develop at the age of 10, so somewhat later than mine. Mine develops, mid-childhood, I think 6, 7, 8, that sort of time. It was certainly there by the age of 7, but it got a lot worse at age 9, and then it kind of went away, and then it came back again. Okay, I'm going to move over to video number 2 now to carry on going over this book, so moving over to video number 2.